I have the deep honor of being the senior minister at Middle Church. And in my work at Middle, I've been to Israel, Palestine 4 times since my first visit when I graduated from seminary. 5 times in Israel, Palestine is not enough for you to know what's happening in the region, but it is enough to know that the people in the region are beautiful people. I've been to Shabbat meals at folks' houses, and I've been to Bethlehem, and I've been in a room with Palestinian and Israeli soldiers trying to both talk about how to get to peace. I've been to Ramallah. I've been, I've just been around, right? Baptized people in the Jordan River last year with some friends. And so I have a heart open to the way this moment in time didn't just start. Didn't just start this week. And my friend Linda, who I've been in the streets with, is what I want to say. She's an incredible organizer, incredible activist. And if she says, let's go, I try to show up. And the feeling is mutual. I would like to ask Linda to just tell us from her point of view, these are particular people. Why are we here, Linda? What happened to get us to this place? And thank you so much for making time for us tonight.
I'm always going to be wherever Middle Church tells me to be. Middle Church is my family. It's one of the few places in New York City that I, as a Muslim American, feel safe and feel welcomed and feel embraced. I'm just really honored. And I am also here with a tender heart. It's been a difficult, few days for so many different communities, including my beloved Palestinian community that I'm from here in the States, and those that we are connected to both in Gaza and in the West Bank. And I hope people who are here with us today are here also tenderhearted and open-hearted to listen to difficult things. This is not an easy conversation. And there's a lot of reactionary moments right now. People are reacting from a place of trauma, from a place of hurt, from a place of harm. And so that's why I try to limit my access to social media, because I know people are sometimes speaking from a place of hurt. And so I try not to be or take things as personal because I know that people are feeling hurt. For people who are feeling outraged, and it all began this weekend on Saturday when we saw the killing of innocent Israeli civilians. That's an important place to be and an important feeling to have. And, as a Palestinian myself and someone who, as you know, Jacqui has been working in the movement for the sanctity of Black life, any murder of an innocent civilian to me is outrageous. I don't care who they are, what race, religion, no religion, outrageous. And I think starting from that is important. But what is even more important is to also start from where this all began. And unfortunately, it did not begin on Saturday. I want people to know that voices like mine are not on national television in the way that they should. We do not have the resources to do the type of education around the 75 years of displacement and dispossession of the Palestinian people. The land of Palestine, when the state of Israel was created in 1948, was not a land without people. Similarly to how the United States, before it was founded, was not a land without people. Palestinians were living in Palestine. We were Palestinian Muslim Christians and Jews. We coexisted. We worked together. We lived together. So this idea that somehow coexistence is not something that we understand as Palestinian is false, because for hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of years prior to the state of Israel, we did coexist. And I remember my grandmother, may God rest her soul, she was born in 1927 and was 21 years old when the state of Israel was created. She wasn't a child, she was an adult. And she said to me one day, she said, as she was telling me the story, she said, we lived with Jews. And we had neighbors who were Jews. And she remembered there were times where they would do a census count. And she would remember that the census workers were Jews, and they would come to the house and they would drink tea with my grandmother. So I want people to know that we've always coexisted. We understand coexistence because we lived it. And so when the state of Israel was created, in order for it to be created, it required the disposition and displacement and even murder of Palestinians. Over 400 villages were destroyed in 1947 and 1948 to make way for the state of Israel. And it pushed Palestinians, many of whom into the West Bank, and as you all know now, into the Gaza Strip. and also made over 7 million refugees around the world in places like Syria and Lebanon and places like Jordan, who has one of the largest Palestinian refugee communities. And so Palestinians are one of the largest refugee communities in the world. And oftentimes when we talk about refugees, we think Syrian, we think Afghan, we think Iraqi refugees, and oftentimes Palestinians are lost in that conversation because we are now almost third or fourth generation refugees. And of course, as we know, Palestinians live all over the world. We are in the diaspora, we live in the United States, we live in South America and Central America and Europe and all over the world. And so for these many years, Jacqui, there has been the continued deprivation of the Palestinian people. The state of Israel occupies the West Bank. And about 16 years ago, they withdrew their military from Gaza. So a lot of times what you'll hear people say is, we do not occupy Gaza. We have removed our military. We do not have bases in Gaza. We have withdrew from Gaza. And now Gaza is under the control of Hamas, which is a political party, and of course have a militant arm to that party, an armed resistance, as you all know. But what's important to know is, yes, the Israeli army did withdraw their troops from Gaza. But what people also need to know is that Gaza is under siege. So there is no reason why we should be having this argument, because even though military has been withdrawn from Gaza, Israel still controls the borders. They control the air, they control the sea. There's no going in and out of Gaza without the permission of the Israeli government. And so that's what people need to understand, that Israel is in control of the water supply. So as we know, in this weekend, in retaliation for the attacks on Israeli civilians, the Israeli government has declared war on the people of Gaza. So they have cut off electricity supply, water supplies, fuel, and they are banning imports of any food and medical supplies to the Gaza Strip right now. So again, Gaza is still under the control of Israel. When you control the borders and you control all in and out, that's just, for me, something that people have to understand, which is part of the context of where we are now. And I think that this summer, many people watched in horror. There were literally pogroms happening in Palestinian villages, illegal Israeli settlers who've literally squatted on the West Bank, which is occupied territories. They are not allowed to be there. They should not be there. It is illegal under international law.
West Bank belongs to Palestine. It is illegal for settlers to be there. Just wanted to,
yes. And that is under international human law. Even the United States government has, condemned settlements. They've called on Israel to stop expanding their settlements. This is kind of a universal call that the settlements that are within the occupied territories are illegal settlements. And so settlers have engaged in violent acts against Palestinians this summer. They were burning homes, burning cars, innocent civilians were killed. Israel, then, of course, Palestinians also defended their land, as you know. And what happened was the Israeli government came in and they, of course, retaliated, which means about 17 young people, for example, in Nablus were literally murdered in like 1 week. And then, as you know, in Ramadan, we watched the attacks on Al-Aqsa Mosque during the holiest time of year. So now people are very focused and outraged on this horrible attack that happened during kind of a Jewish high holy holiday weekend, which again is outrageous. But again, there was all this outrageousness against the desecration of holy sites for Muslims during Ramadan. And here we are, not the same swift condemnation that we've seen now. And so all this to say, Jacqui, is that there's never justification for the murder of civilians. But at the same time, we have to put things in context. And we cannot believe that carpet bombing the Palestinians of Gaza is the way to solve this. We have to end the cycle of violence. And people will say we have to be solution oriented. And I tell people all the time, there really is only one solution to start from. And that includes ending the occupation of the Palestinian people and lifting the siege on Gaza. And I do believe that most human beings believe, Jacqui, that everybody deserves freedom and liberation, that everybody deserves to live with dignity, that our children all deserve to thrive and fulfill their dreams and aspirations. And I've said this to a lot of Jewish friends over the years. And I said, listen, I hear you, and I understand why people believe that the state of Israel is an important place, and was created, as some would explain, as a safe and secure homeland for the Jewish people. But as you know, Jacqui, you and I are in this movement together. You cannot have safety and security at the expense of another people. It's not going to work. And apartheid lies. Apartheid lies to people, and we've seen it, and we've seen the lies exposed this weekend. that you cannot live a normal life. You cannot be safe when your neighbors are not safe. You cannot be safe when there are borders and walls between us. And I think this weekend it all came to head. And I hope that through the horrors and the darkness that people right now move through that horror and move through the rage that some people are feeling right now and say to themselves, yes, horrific civilian deaths, but we will not allow for more civilian deaths, because more civilian deaths do not resurrect the deaths that are already here. And that carpet bombing a piece of land. So the Gaza Strip is home to 2.2 million Palestinians, 50% of whom are under the age of 18, and 40% of those are under the age of 14. So we're talking about children here that are literally in darkness in the night, waiting for their death and destruction. And I hope that nobody here and nobody outside of this presentation and webinar believes that carpet bombing little children in Gaza is the way that we're going to solve this crisis.
Thank you, Linda. I just want to take a breath with you there. I think to hear you describe the current situation, and I understand your family there, here, all across the place where Palestinians live. It's a broken-hearted story you're telling, a grief-infused story you're telling. And I wonder, love, if I could just take you back a couple of sentences to 50% are under the age of, and 40% are under the age of the 2.2 million people who live in Gaza, which has been called an open-air prison. Just talk a bit about the people there. Give the listeners a sense of the people who live there.
You know, Jacqui, I just want people to just imagine a whole lot of Lindas running around Gaza. You know, a whole lot of people. You've met my mom before, like a whole lot of my moms running around. These are Palestinians that live in Gaza. They are people who have dreams and aspirations. They get married. They have beautiful weddings. They have culture and arts. Many of them are fishermen, because Gaza, as you know, is on the beach there. They fish. They are just a resilient people. I mean, look what they've been through. They've been through bombardment after bombardment. In 2014, over 2,500 Palestinians were murdered in literally a matter of a summer. They keep coming back. They rebuild and they come back and they come back. They are children. They are children who want to play on the beach. They are children who love soccer. The children of Gaza are big fans of Messi and Ronaldo. Like they watch Barcelona. I love watching videos of them where they're literally arguing and debating about different teams, about Real Madrid and Barcelona. Like that's a big thing in Gaza. These are ordinary people, Jacqui. And what is applied to Palestinians is never applied in any other context. This idea that people want us to believe that the entire Gaza Strip, 2.2 million people, are Hamas, that somehow all of the people who live in Palestine or live in the Gaza Strip are all militant or affiliated with a militant group, is outrageous. And we would never, ever say that about anybody else. We would never say that every single Israeli who lives in Israel is somehow affiliated or endorses the actions of the Israeli government. We would never say that. We would never say that every African is, connected to or endorses the evil of Boko Haram. Like, we would never apply this in any other instance. Even in America, we have Donald Trump and the horrors of that administration. And we would never allow anyone else to say all of the Americans are Donald Trump or are aligned with this fascist administration. But for some reason, this is applied to Palestinians. And so I want people to know that the Palestinians in Gaza and in the West Bank, they just want to live just like us. They want to go to school. They want to work. They want to be able to travel. It's horrific. For example, if someone wants to get medical attention in the West Bank and they want to travel to another country, you are at the behest of the Israeli government to give you a travel document to leave the West Bank, for example. Same thing in Gaza. You don't just get up and take an airplane. Gaza does not have an airport. They don't have a military. They don't have an airport. They don't have basic things that we have. Most of the schools in Gaza are run by UN agencies, run by humanitarian organizations. So that's what I want people to know, that do not allow. And one of the things that I want to make clear to people, and many people remember this other horrific time, it was right after the horrific attacks of 9/11. And this is why I'm really triggered by this whole thing. as an American Muslim who lives in New York, I'm starting to hear the same rhetoric. Like I heard the president of the United States say, we're beefing up law enforcement and we're assessing for domestic threats. Who's the domestic threat, Jacqui? Is it your Palestinian neighbor? Is it your Muslim neighbor? Like Hamas has nothing to do with us here in the United States. The same thing when we had these horrific attacks of 9/11, that yes, the hijackers were people who claimed or proclaimed Islam as their faith, but they had nothing to do with American Muslims. And guess what happened? Post 9/11 policies that targeted and profiled Muslim Americans, the targeting of our or the stripping of our civil liberties on so many levels, the no-fly list, the suspected terror watch list, the NYPD surveillance programs, like the FBI programs, the different policies, the wars that we justified because the Arabs were these savage people, and going into Iraq and lying about weapons of mass destruction and killing 1 million Iraqis and 12,000 American soldiers. And I'm hearing that now, those beatings of those war drums happening now. And also the disinformation, Jacqui, for example, it is already horrific and ugly. We don't have to add misinformation to make it more horrific. So for example, there are been debunked accounts of, for example, the rape of Israeli civilians. There is no proof, and there have been multiple media agencies, including the LA Times, who have retracted their statements. This idea that the militants were beheading babies, we have not seen that proof. There has no one that has been able to make those claims, and they came from one Israeli soldier who happens to also be an Israeli settler. This has all been investigated and it's been retracted online. But just as you know, Jacqui, and I've been through this before, the retraction and the correction is too late. Once something is viral, once it's out there, once people have shared it, once you come back and say, sorry, actually, that wasn't really true, people already believe those things. And so again, we're beating the war drums, and people are so outraged by this idea of beheading babies and rape of women, of Israeli civilians, that there are people in New York City. I watched a video of a protest, the pro-Israel protest, where people said, parking lot, make Gaza into a parking lot, flatten Gaza, kill every Arab, every Palestinian. And thank God we have leaders in New York City like Brad Lander and others who have condemned this language and said, we will not accept that here. But again, I'm starting to hear this type of vilification and dehumanization of Palestinians and Arabs and Muslims who stand in solidarity with the Palestinian people, and seeing a rise in anti-Arab, anti-Palestinian sentiment. And we're seeing it manifest. I mean, there was a vandalism just in Boston on a sign that said Palestinian American Community Center, where somebody wrote Nazis on it. Like we are horrified, and we are not, Jacqui, the enemies of Jews. Palestinians have never been the enemies of Jews. Apartheid is the enemy. And until we come to that conclusion and believe that our safety is bound up with one another, we're just not going to be able to move forward from here.
I'm so with you and moved to hear you say Palestinians are not the enemies of Jews. They're in my talk the first night of this series, taking us back to Ishmael and Isaac and Sarah and Hagar and Abraham, the father of these nations, and also, Linda, intense times in history. World War I, 1917, the British folks are like, this is how we're going to handle the Palestinian problem. Holocaust, million Jews as refugees. This is how we're going to handle the Jewish problem. I'm wanting to say out loud to folks who are listening, we have resources on our website for you to read and learn and know, and not just speak things you heard. We can't fact check all the news. We don't have those resources, but you can listen to more than one station, listen to where the news is being said, ask yourself where else that's verified, and facts, Linda, like you and I, in our kind of Kingian, nonviolent, anti-racist, stand up for all the people trainings. This moment goes back to all the moments where white supremacist ideologies creates apartheid, turns a people against each other, decides the fate of people sharing the same land. That's way oversimplified. Don't people listen to me yelling at Jacqui? I know I'm simplifying. I'm trying to say though, but you find the places where you can read and know and understand how this moment isn't the only moment like this. And this moment is ensconced in imperial plans for people who had their own place, and how it's dictated what the solutions are, right? The solutions to the humanitarian crisis end up causing another humanitarian crisis. Linda, does that resonate as fact for you?
Absolutely. I think what I'm so perturbed by, Jacqui, is that people in this weekend, because of the rage that people are feeling, and some of it is absolutely righteous rage. Like, I'm enraged, and all, like, the fact that civilians are always the ones that bear the brunt of this horror. I am outraged, and I understand people are outraged, but I'm also perturbed by the people who want your outrage to start on Saturday. And I want to say to people, for those that did not know what happened before Saturday, I think that's okay. And as you said, and I see someone in the comments here from Middle Church talking about resources that are available. Also, the Institute for Middle East Understanding has also put together some kind of fact sheets. They are a kind of narrative organization that kind of works with the media and make sure that the kind of Palestinian voice is kind of centered as well. They kind of have some answers to some really important questions that people have, especially for those that don't know much about this long-standing conflict. But I will say that I want people to be centered in their full humanity and be moved by their moral compass. And I know that if people really centered their moral compass over their rage and emotions, that we would all be in a better place, and we will move to a better place. And what I mean by that, Jacqui, is that just as you are outraged at the murder of innocent Israeli civilians, I want you to also be outraged at the siege on Gaza. It's a place that is uninhabitable for human beings, that has been called the world's largest open air prison. I want people to be outraged at an illegal military occupation, the longest standing military occupation in modern history. And what I want my fellow Americans to be outraged about, because we're speaking here together as fellow Americans, is that it's not something that's disconnected from us, regardless whether or not you are Palestinian or Jewish. It is connected to us because we fund it, Jacqui. We fund it. $3 billion a year from your taxpayer dollars are literally aiding and abetting an occupation of a marginalized people. And there have been rising voices amongst Jewish Americans, even people who don't agree with me, who have said over and over again, it is time to end the occupation. And so this long continuation of aiding and abetting this military occupation. I mean, Joe Biden told the state of Israel just the other day, we got you. Weapons, we're ready to go, whatever you need. Israel has plenty of American weapons and plenty of money for weapons. I wish I had a president that said, hey, wait a minute, maybe I won't send weapons to a fascist administration, a Netanyahu. We're not talking about rational leaders here. You know, Benjamin Netanyahu, for the last 18 months, has been feeling the wrath of the Israeli people. Hundreds of thousands of Israelis have been on the streets of Israel, demanding democracy. They have been calling him a corrupt, anti-democratic fascist. There are military officials that literally said, we will not take orders of this prime minister. I mean, they've been literally consistently for like 300 days or more on the streets. And then all of a sudden, in one day, in 24 hours, Jacqui, we go from an anti-democratic, corrupt fascist to let's hand him some weapons and believe that he somehow is going to do something just with those weapons. We cannot be a people in a generation that is going to rubber stamp the annihilation of the Palestinians of Gaza right now and believe that retaliation, vengeance, eye for an eye is the way that we're going to get out of this violence. And we have to remember, no matter what, Jacqui, that the state of Israel is an actual nation state government. You cannot equate them to militants, that they are not the same. This is a government with a military. This is a government with full on solidarity and support from pretty much every nation state in the world. They have everything at their, all the resources at their, and I believe that nation state leaders, including us as Americans, telling our leaders, Stop being one-sided, be honest brokers, push our people towards justice and towards peace, because right now we're just helping beat the war drum that we beat in Iraq and we beat in Afghanistan. And guess what? Nothing good came of those. Nothing at all came of those.
Nothing good came of that. And you know, y'all, this is me centering Linda's voice. I want to just quickly say, as a universalist clergy, faith leader, student, I'm a student, like you're a student, that this inability for us to claim the higher ground, us meaning our president, us meaning our nation, to say, actually, we're going to stand for peace. We're just going to stand for peace. I would like a leader. I would like President Biden to say, okay, maybe I want Jed Bartlett to be the president, right? I don't know. Can we get together and talk about peace? Like I stand with Israel and I'm going to keep sending weapons, or this is broken. My Jewish friends understand that this occupation, this apartheid hurts everybody. So that's not just this Christian and this Muslim. My Jewish friends, to a person, say that this occupation hurts everybody. So I want us to be nuanced. I want us to listen deeply for the complicated nature of this moment and the simplicity. Anybody who's just barbarically wreaking violence on innocent people is not my people. That's not my people. That's not what I want to be the way that we heal the world. Linda and I are both Kenyan nonviolent people. The violence is not the answer, and violence begets more violence. Linda, do you want to say anything? I didn't ask this yet, but do you want to say anything about Hamas? People don't understand Hamas. They don't understand what that is. Can you give us just a minute on that before we wrap?
Mm-hmm. You know, sometimes we just need to do math, and I think math is important here too. Hamas was created in 1987, and the state of Israel was created in 1948. So people got to do the math. And Hamas came up as a political party in opposition to Fatah, which was, of course, as people know, Fatah is the party that holds the Palestinian Authority right now.
Right.
So they grew up as kind of like a rebellious political party, and people call them an Islamist party. They're like, you know, they're Muslim, I guess you could say. But that's what Hamas is. It's a political party. And this particular political party, Hamas, in 2006, ran an election, and they won majority of seats, which then made them the quote leaders of Gaza. So they won an election. It's like Republicans and Democrats, and then this Islamist political party wins, or that's what people call them, Islamist party, but they're whatever, Hamas is what they're called. And they win this election. And I think what a lot of people don't understand is that people also feel failed by Palestinian leadership. And so when you've had Palestinian leadership for all the years and your material conditions didn't change, you're just going to go vote for somebody else. And so they voted. And that was back in 2006. Now, look how long ago we're talking here. Like, that was a long time ago, Jacqui, over 15, 16 years ago, or 17 years ago almost now. And this political party has an armed resistance arm of that party. So there's Hamas, and they have an armed resistance that's part of that. And so this is an explanation versus saying, again, and I will repeat, not everybody in Gaza, first of all, voted in that election. Because as I keep saying, the majority of the people in Gaza are children that do not even qualify to vote in elections. There also hasn't been one in 17 years.
Right.
And so I just want to keep reaffirming to people that it is very dangerous to equate the entire Gaza Strip with one political party, just like we would not apply that in the United States or anywhere else around the world.
Yep.
But I will also add, Jacqui, that I want people that when you said be nuanced, this is not just a call to like, let's just be nuanced. People's lives depend on us being nuanced in this moment. And I will share just two quick examples. My daughter is a second-year college student in the City University of New York network. So as you know, that's all the colleges, College of Staten Island, Brooklyn College, Lehman, you all know, Baruch, everybody. And my daughter is not really a political kid. She's my youngest child. She's been through a lot of trauma and kind of kept away from she doesn't involve herself in student groups. That's just not who my child is. She wants to be a nurse, and that's it. She gets an email from the chancellor of CUNY And the email is a long email. And here is a Palestinian student, a Palestinian Muslim student, who is reading an email from the chancellor of her university system that talks about civilians and Israelis and attacks, and it goes and goes and goes. And not one time, Jacqui, not once was there a mention of Palestinians in that statement. So do our Muslim, Arab, Palestinian students who are part of this diverse CUNY system, not a single mention. And so my daughter came to me and she asked me a question. She said, Mom, she said, why don't they mention Palestinians? She couldn't believe what was so controversial about saying our hearts also go out to our Palestinian students who we know are connected to families in Palestine.
Right.
And it's going on everywhere in hospitals, employers, and people are sharing with me messages, whether it's from elected officials or their local district leaders or their employers. And I'm just asking people that one thing that you can do, Jacqui, in this moment is be part of being on the right side of history, and at least at the minimum, humanize Palestinians.
Right.
And call people out who do not do that. And I think that we have that responsibility because there's really nothing we can do. The people of the Palestinians and the Israeli government and other world leaders have to get together and stop this violence. So you and I, the one thing that we can do is not allow our elected leaders to divide us, not allow our elected leaders to dehumanize Palestinians, to vilify us so that they can justify violence against our Palestinian neighbors and their families.
I appreciate that so much, Linda. Okay, friends, I'm so grateful to you, my sister, for coming. My heart is crushed, pulverized with grief for all the violence. I'm praying for your people in Palestine. I'm praying for Josh's people in Israel. I'm praying for peace. I'm praying for intelligent conversations that lead to life. I'm praying for people who don't know what they're talking about to be quiet. Okay, don't fan any flames, don't say crazy things. And there are people, these are human beings, children, adults, old people who are Israeli, who are Palestinian. I've been there. The people are people who want to live lives of peace and joy and flourishing. Let's pray for that. I'm thanking you for coming to this series, y'all who came. We're going to put this up in the world so you can see these 3 stories, mine, Linda's, Josh Stanton's. I want you to be compassionate listeners. Listen and learn and lean into peace. Lean into peace. Linda, can I say a prayer for us? With our eyes wide open, Linda and I see you. I see your heart, your passion, your gifts. I see the mommy to your kids, the wife to your husband, the daughter to your parents. I see you, strong, beautiful woman. And I pray for all the people that you know and love. I pray for all the people that we all know and love in the region. And I pray for us, the world. Let us not keep making the same mistakes over and over again, letting violence dictate our politics. Let's do something different this time. Thanks for coming. Thank you, Linda.